We can get really lost in the weeds on these numbers. That's not really critical at the moment. The rule of thumb I want you to remember is that if you poke in your minus and then you evade, 99% of the time, you have advantage.
I reached out to one of the best Virtua Fighter 5 players in the world after trying to play the Virtua Fighter 5 REVO beta on Steam. Found myself kind of plateauing and not playing the game correctly, so I reached out to none other than Juicebox, the FGC legend, to teach us how to play Virtua Fighter 5. So, buckle in, because by the end of this video, you're going to get all the tools you need to start your Virtua Fighter 5 REVO journey, since it just came out. So, get ready, because here it comes.
Okay, awesome. So how are you? How are you doing? What's been your experience with VF so far?
So it's been great, and I'm really glad you asked that question because I wanted to chat a little bit before we got into it. So this is my first ever Virtua Fighter. I've always wanted to play Virtua Fighter, never quite got into it, and I always felt like I kind of missed the boat on it. But then this stuff got announced, and now I'm here. And I played a little bit over the weekend, and I had a blast. But as soon as I got to, I think it was like first Dan, where like people actually knew how to play, then like that was the end of my experience basically. Which is why I contacted you, because I was needing some help getting some stuff picked up, or picking up on a couple of things here and there. And I'm really happy you decided to pick me up on this lesson thing. So you're finding problem number one.
Well,
I don't know
it depends.
Are there characters that make these game systems more easy to learn, or is it just a case where like every character plays well with the system, so you can learn the game with any character?
The system always wins. So a beginner should focus on learning the system with their favorite character.
Okay.
Is what I would say. Pick whatever character you like that makes you enjoy the game. So this is actually an image that Sega posted today. They recommend Brad, Jackie, Jeffrey, Pai, Lau, and Taka Arashi for beginners. And they recommend Akira, Aoi, Shun-Di, and Vanessa for advanced. Everyone else they say is intermediate. I more or less agree with this list. More or less. I know why they put Aoi in advanced, but I don't agree. And I know why they put Lau in beginner, but I don't agree. But there's room to disagree. In fact, yesterday on my stream, I mentioned I think Taka, Pai, and Jeffrey are good for beginners. I wouldn't have put Brad in beginners because he has 3 different stances that can all flow into each other. And I feel like for a beginner, sometimes they get so attracted to that idea they make bad plays. But maybe Sega says having a big move list and wanting to do cool moves is not a problem. Let the beginner do that. So that's why they put Brad there. You know, but effectively, as long as you are having fun and the character motivates you to keep learning, that's the most important thing. Akira being in advanced seems sort of odd. If you look at the total number of moves that exist in the game, Akira has one of the smallest move lists. So it's like, well, why is Akira on the list if he has the smallest move list? Well, because Akira has a very limited move list. So Akira is forced to play in a very specific way where he attacks you if you high guard and attack you if you crouch. And Akira, more than other characters, really needs to have that Oki mix-up stuff down. Otherwise, he'll let you wake up with evade. This actually happened in me versus my Denkai match. Denkai was constantly testing to see if I had the meaty pressure. And when he saw that I didn't, he woke up doing stuff. Akira is hard to actually get your opponent to freeze because of all the work you have to do because of his limited move list. And that's why he's not recommended for beginners. Probably the first most important thing about VF is that standing jab is for something. It is for attacking high guard.
If your opponent either blocks or gets hit by your standing punch, you'll have the advantage. Therefore, it's a good idea to use standing punch to set up your attacks and throws. From a martial arts or boxing perspective, the standing punch is like a lead jab. Fighters use the jab to set up bigger punches, kicks, and combos, and this same mentality applies to Virtua Fighter.
So if your opponent is not high guarding, jab sucks.
Okay.
And instead you should just take your turn with mid. And your quick mid with Shundi and with a bunch of other characters is 6p. And then like you'll have a plan for when that's blocked or when that hits.
Just ask you this. Sidestepping, I'm coming from playing Tekken previously.
There
So,
we go.
sidestepping in this game is very different, I've learned. Do you get like any like frame advantage or anything? Like, am I able to sidestep punish something, or is that not how this game is?
You absolutely can, but sidestepping is a digital thing, and it is a choice and a counter, which is to say, you sidestep a strike when I strike. If you tap up and I didn't strike, and then I hit a button, then I will hit you. So sidestepping is a choice you make at disadvantage, and there's a sound effect indicating that you succeeded.
When your character successfully evades an attack, they'll make a sound.
So it's sort of like if you're at disadvantage, you can guard or you can evade. So like right there, I wasn't attacking, so nothing happened. You'll also notice there was no sound effect.
Yeah, okay.
Now, you'll also, like, the animation is different. Like, your character will, like, step further into the background. There's normally a tiny little camera shift. And the thing about evades is that they actually take 23 total frames. Regardless of your character, it's just a solid 23. So you can actually calculate what your frame advantage is post-evade. Unfortunately, the training mode doesn't show you. We can get really lost in the weeds on these numbers. That's not really critical at the moment. The rule of thumb I want you to remember is that if you poke in your minus and then you evade, 99% of the time, you have advantage. The only real exception is if your opponent responds with a standing P, because if your opponent responds with a standing P, these are 27 total frames generally, 27, 28, and you only gain like 3 or 4 frames from the previous situation. So from -5 and after evade, you're still like -1, -2-ish. So if you evade just P, you might not have advantage, but if you evade literally anything else, you will have advantage. So poke, evade, throw them. Poke, evade, wait till they stand up, throw them.
Oh, that
Poke,
makes so much
evade,
sense.
go to their back. And basically, you have a full range of choices post-evade. The hard part is that it is fast. The other thing is that just because you evaded doesn't mean you get anything guaranteed. An evasion is just one of the many choices you can make. Until you get like into the +10 and beyond area of frame data, absolutely nothing is guaranteed. And then he can evade. You see that? So just because you evaded doesn't mean anything is guaranteed. You have to read what their defensive choice will be. And if your opponent is evading too much, the simplest thing to do is to just throw them. Just throws catch evades in both directions. I like to joke sometimes that Virtua Fighter doesn't have a neutral game. It absolutely does have a neutral game, but it's harder to control than games like Tekken, where you have very fine, precise control over your movement. If you see me like dash canceling around, you'll notice it's almost like I'm on a grid. It's hard to like be at a very specific spot. And walking offers you no defense, and it doesn't really move very far. Okay. Now, I have some resources. Obviously, this is a lot of numbers and stuff that's going to be tough to remember. So one of the things to think about with Virtua Fighter is you want to grow into the mechanics. You want to start on the simpler end and sort of add more as more and more match situations come up. But really, the beauty of it is that any situation could happen at any point. So your skills are constantly tested. That can be a really fun thing. It can also be a really frustrating thing, like when you're new, it's like, oh, he hit me from the side, or I didn't know this, or I didn't know that. And what I would just suggest is that get used to learning new things, because it's going to be happening for a while, because the mechanics are designed so that there is RPS at all times. It might seem like, wow, -2 side, that seems so good. Or there'll be things that are like +10 on side, like, wow, that seems broken, that seems to do so much damage. But there is almost always RPS in play. So with better understanding of the mechanics, you can avoid those, and you'll just have to eat them a few times before you start actually thinking about them. Now, I think we sort of went in a big circle around a bunch of different mechanics, and honestly, there's still quite a lot to discuss, but I think we might want to go over like the basics of offense one more time.
Yes, please.
Effectively, the most basic offensive sequence you can go for is jab into quick mid. Unfortunately for Shundi, this is important, his quick mid starts in 15 frames, and that's actually 1 frame slower than everyone else in the game. Most characters have a 14 frame mid that they want to use. And when you don't have one of those 14 frame mids, you can just substitute with a 2P. The idea being that if your opponent presses after the jab, you want to attack with something that'll give you a counter hit advantage. So like jab into 2P is like a basic frame trap that everyone can do. Okay, so you jab them, and if they press, you 2P, and then you get this +7. And what you want to do with this +7 is you want to throw or mid. Okay, get advantage, and then throw or mid. Get advantage, and then throw, get advantage, and then throw or mid. And the idea is your mid, you want to pick something that's safe on block, but that can also give you a good reward. When you look at a command list, I want to point out that it's about the same size as Tekken, but if you actually wrote down everything that's not in a string, most characters only have like 30 to 50-ish attacks, like period. Like, for example, here's Shundi's P, and it leads into all these different offshoot strings, some of which require drinks, right? So if we just omit all of that and we just say P is a high, we can cut out that chunk of the move list. And then the next move on the move list is literally 6P. See that? And then there's 6P strings, and then it's 4P, and the options from that. And then 6P, and the options from that. Each of those string starting moves, each unique move actually has a purpose, and then some of them have string follow-ups. This particular mid, if it were to counter hit, you're going to get a combo off of it. Let's see. Some characters have multiples of these, but pretty much all characters have a mid that starts around 16, 17 frames that can give you a counter hit combo. And I don't know what the combo for Shundi here is going to be. I think it's going to be. But the idea is everyone has a mid that when you have significant frame advantage, you can go for to punish them even harder for striking. So this is like a fun drill I like to set up, where they do one jab, and then they do 2 jabs. He blocks, I stop. He gets hit, I continue. Whew. And then there's like a real combo there that I don't know.
You need it.
Boom, boom, boom. See that? Get advantage, and then attack from advantage. When you have advantage, choose if you want to attack with something bigger. So, and then like from there, there's a -8 situation where your opponent can represent multiple things. So effectively, what you're going to keep coming back to is get advantage and then mid or throw. Get advantage and then mid or throw. If you have enough advantage, you can represent the counter hit mid. You don't have to do that counter hit mid. You could just do another 6P. But what you'll recognize is if you keep doing counter hit 6Ps, you basically have to land like 10 of these to win a round. And that's fine if you want to win that way, but basically winning with just the jabs, winning with just the boxing is like a basic way to start playing. But then it's like, what do I do with this +7? What do I do with this +9 that I'm getting? And what you do with it is you make them want to, if they're guarding when you have advantage, you throw them. If they're not guarding when you have advantage, you go for the counter hit mid. And that's like a basic 50-50 to operate off. Or to put it another way, it's difficult to actually hedge your bets in a meaningful, effective way unless your opponent is just lacking options. If your opponent actually represents guard and backdash and crouch and evade and jump and, you know, disadvantage launcher, then it's extremely difficult to rush someone down because you don't have an option that beats all those. You might have an option that beats 2 or 3 of those, but then not the other ones. So you have to figure out how your opponent defends in order to attack them. Similarly, you have to figure out the basics of attacking so that you can start to minimize the options and start to actually counter your opponent's choices. So there's no substitute for knowing the system. Absolutely not. But then the system guides you towards Yomi-style decisions, rock, paper, scissors. Like that's ultimately where you have to go no matter what the situation is. And that's honestly why I love Virtua Fighter. But it's a big adaptation. Yeah, Killer Instinct is really the perfect example from 2D of a game where even though you're getting hit, you're making a decision. And then after the combo break, there's that situation which in some matchups is like slightly advantaged and so on, right? Like it promotes a continuous play, and that is absolutely like the focus of Virtua Fighter compared to other games. Now, it honestly, it's honestly a little overwhelming. I understand. And I was worried about this. I'm sure there's plenty of people in both of our chats that was like, wow, this seems sort of like an info dump. Like I want to be clear, info dumps are bound to happen with this game. If you are curious about the mechanics, every mechanic feeds into another one. Like we didn't talk about offensive move. We didn't talk about offensive move. We didn't really talk about side mechanics, although like I briefly mentioned them. I talked about side throw escapes a little bit. I didn't talk about wall mechanics. There's more going on. Depending on your character, that will lean you towards learning about that particular mechanic. So your goal as a player is to try and take advantage of these common, P, 2P, 6P situations, and then as the rest of the game opens up to you, learn about those and learn about the counters to that. But there's always an RPS going on, so if you have confidence in the mechanics, then you can construct the proper reads, and then it's just about experience. I've been playing the game about 4 years. I can confidently say that I can have an entertaining match with Virtua Fighter players of almost any level. I was in that exhibition the other day, and Denkai is the sort of player that absolutely would have kicked my ass 3 years ago when I had started. I would have never been able to keep up with him. There's like this Dragon Ball Z thing where Goku walks up to Gohan. It's like, when I was fighting Cell, could you follow us? Were you able to see what we were doing? Yes. And it's like, Gohan has leveled up. He's on this level now. That actually is a thing. Can you keep up with the pace of the game? Is your power level, is your experience level informed enough, strong enough, resilient enough to be able to know what's happening on both sides and make decisions in real time? 2 years ago, no. Now, absolutely. I almost beat him, damn it. The score was 4-5. It's a system game, so I know all the answers. It's just about making sure that your response, your reaction is practiced and effortless. Muscle memory, particularly with things like defensive mechanics, counts for a lot in this game. You're always pressing buttons. You're pressing buttons on offense, but you're also pressing buttons on defense. And you're doing these dash cancels and stuff on defense. And you're backdashing into attack on defense. And you're attacking at -6 on defense. Buttons are always being pressed. There is no downtime. So muscle memory in both the offensive and defensive parts of the game becomes such a huge aspect because you need to make sure that your defense or offense actually works for you to flow into a meaningful strategic sequence. It's a lot. It sort of exemplifies a real martial art in that way. If you haven't practiced the punch won't be good. It's not just jab into medium punch. It's not just jab into throw. You have to finesse it. You have to make jab into 2P work, because jab into 2P won't work on some players. If jab into 2P isn't working, then jab into throw might work. If none of that is working, maybe they're reacting to your jab, and maybe you should just start with the throw. And so on and so on and so forth. The rabbit hole doesn't really stop going down, and that's why this game has been enjoyable for 12 plus years.
Fortunately, that's the end of our time with Juicebox. Him and I spent about 3 hours of him just teaching me how to play Virtua Fighter. And if you learned as much as I did during this video, please feel free to give him a follow. He's at JuiceboxFGC on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, all the socials. And feel free to follow us as well. We're at BestofVShow on all the socials, Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, whatever. All right. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in the next one. And if you like this kind of stuff, let me know and we'll do more. I almost flipped you guys off. Blue, you can keep this in. Fuck off. I'm kidding. Don't keep this in. Or, I mean, you know what? If somebody is still watching this at the end of the video and they see this, then this is not